Welcome back to Long Way Home, everyone. Today we're doing an in-depth review of Sena's flagship Bluetooth communicators, the 50S and the 50R. Now, this was quite a difficult review to make because I wanted to get up close and personal with these devices and test all of their features in detail instead of just reading the back of the box, and this meant a range test and also a wind noise test since I always ride with a flip-up helmet. In my previous comparison of the Sena 30K and the PackTalk Bold, I said that I was very disappointed, not necessarily by Sena's hardware, but more their shoddy software implementation which ruins the user experience. So I have very high hopes that all of that has been ironed out in the new 50 series. And Sena probably feels confident about them as well since they skipped the entire 40 series and went straight to the 50. This is not going to be an installation video, we've already done that, link below. A comparison with the PackTalk will also come soon. Now, both of these units were sent to me by Sena and so were the PackTalk Bolds, so full disclosure here, I have no affinity towards any of them. Affiliate links below. Dave needs his favorite dog food, and let's get the show on the road. The differences between the R and the S are more than just the jog dial on the S and the 3 buttons on the R. The 50R is basically married to your helmet and cannot be taken off, meaning that when you charge it, you have to take your whole helmet over to the charging station. The good news for modular helmet users is that the 50R's boom microphone is wired up inside the helmet, unlike the 50S's mic, which is routed from the outside clamp to the inside of your helmet. The 50R also gets an hour extra of battery life, giving you 14 hours of listening to music, and that number will take a hit if you also have the mesh intercom turned on. Although it might look smaller, in reality the size and weight differences between the two are minute to make any real-world difference. The biggest update from the older 30K units, hardware-wise, is the implementation of Bluetooth 5 instead of Bluetooth 4.1, which gives the unit a lot more bandwidth to send and receive data, meaning clearer voice audio when talking to your mates or enemies, I don't judge, and a much more stable connection. The speakers have also gotten a huge quality update over the older 30Ks. I was very pleasantly impressed by the sound quality and especially their bass response. As far as volume is concerned, I found no reason to turn them up to max, and remember, that is riding with an open modular helmet. This is good news for those of you riding with earbuds since you have a lot of volume to play with. Software improvements, Mesh 2.0 is where the party's all at, and hopefully Sena's fixed a lot of the bugs which have plagued the 30 series. You can communicate with other riders using 3 different methods. The old school Bluetooth mode will let you talk to 3 other buddies. The private mesh group creates exactly that, a mesh group for you and 23 of your buddies, and the biggest improvement so far was the implementation of open mesh. This is quite a big deal since you just turn your open mesh on and anyone in range can start talking to you. No pairing, no pressing of any buttons, as long as they are in range, you can chat. Great idea and great implementation. A new Wi-Fi module also makes an appearance, and I really like this thing. You can charge your device with the included USB-C cable. Well done, Sena, for going over to the more durable USB-C port, or you can charge it with the Wi-Fi adapter, which after configuring for the first time will also check for firmware updates and update your device while charging. Great idea, great implementation. Well done for throwing this in. Now, let's go back to the intercom story for a while, since this is the idea behind buying a motorcycle communicator. Talking with other people. I'm going to show you 2 tests which I've done to see what the real-world range of these units actually is, since we don't live in perfect testing environments like the moon, and I also don't believe the claimed 2-kilometer range. And the second test will be a noise filtering test. This is what makes or breaks a product. If the device is unable to deal with wind noise, you're not going to have a good time using it. For the range test, I set a helmet with the 50S on the ground, turned on mesh mode and placed my phone inside to play music. Then I placed the mic inside my helmet next to the speaker and rode in a straight line to see exactly where the music will either cut off or start to experience cutouts. It seems that from about 400 meters, you start experiencing some signal loss, and most of the time after 600 to 800 meters, the music stops completely. When you do come back in range, the comms get restored and you start hearing music again. I did this test 3 times and the results were about the same, and while 400 meters is a far cry from 2 kilometers, I was expecting this. Secondly, this is a one-on-one mesh setup. If you have 4 riders in a group, as long as they are within that ½ kilometer sweet spot, all of them will be able to communicate with no problem. This is the entire idea of the mesh system compared to an older style Bluetooth only system. Range is only really important when comparing it to the riders that are closest together. As long as no one is further away from their closest rider than the 400 to 500 meter real range, then the entire group can theoretically be spread out as far as 8 kilometers. The next test, the wind noise test, is what really got me bummed out. As I said before, I mostly ride with a flip-up helmet, which is mostly flipped up, since we do a lot of back roads and off-road in Romania and we don't ride very fast. So the unit being able to filter out the wind noise is paramount for me. I did this test in 2 different ways, firstly riding my bike and secondly from the car. Riding the bike, I left the mic inside the helmet on the ground to pick up what was coming from the speakers and left mesh mode open.
70 km an hour.
While the units did cut in and out and send a lot of wind noise through, I wasn't happy with the test itself, since those 400 meters of usable range ran out pretty quickly to have a conclusive test and the units would just disconnect. So I jumped in my car, set up the 50R to play some music, connected them both, again using the mesh system, and stuck the 50S's mic out the window, pointed in the right direction obviously. When you're listening to music and someone in your group starts talking, then the music volume goes down. So if when I stuck the mic out the window, the music on the 50R was still playing, we could assume that the 50R was doing a good job understanding that it's just wind noise and nobody actually talking. The moment I stuck the mic outside the window, the music would dip, indicating that the mic was transmitting, and this would be okay if it was only for a couple of seconds, until the algorithm figured out that it was wind noise pattern and not a voice pattern. But no matter the speed I was going at, the music never came back on as long as the mic was out the window. This was exactly my biggest gripe with the 30K, and I was really hoping that they would have fixed it. Not such a major problem for those using full face helmets, since you don't really get a lot of wind in there, but for open helmets, it's a deal breaker. This also got me thinking then, what if the old bugs plaguing the 30K weren't ironed out or new software was used and they actually made their way to the 50 series as well? So I tested out Ambient Mode. This is a great idea that Sena came up with, and the logic behind it is that if you go to a gas station and didn't want to take your helmet off, now that I'm thinking about it, this is very helpful in 2020. You could turn Ambient Mode on, which would activate an external mic on the unit and send the audio to your speakers, and you could hear the attendant with your helmet on. The first part works with no problem. You turn it on, and if you touch or rub the unit, you can definitely hear that the mic is picking something up. But unless somebody is talking a maximum of 1 centimeter away from your unit, that's that much. You can't hear a thing. So in reality, this feature is again useless. The worst part is that this has been the same since the Sena 20 series days. My last pet peeve with Sena's software was that on my old 20S and on the 30K as well, you would get the battery low voice prompt about 2 to 3 minutes before your battery was about to die. Not an hour before, so you could plan your stop to plug it in, or when the battery was like at 20%. Nope, 3 minutes, that's all you got. I was really determined to do this test, so I ended up walking around the house with the 50S all day while it played music from my phone, waiting for the battery to die. The first battery low prompt came when the battery was at exactly 0%. Then followed about 5 more prompts, and 5 minutes later the unit switched off. So all in all, it seems there are a lot of ghosts in the machine from the older Sena units still baked into the 50 series code. But it's not all bad. I know I must be sounding like a negative Nancy by now, but Sena has actually improved their software quite a lot and has come up with some great new ideas like the Wi-Fi charger, while managing to actually decrease the price from the 30K. The voice recognition is a lot better on the 50 series, which I'm really a fan of using. It's a lot better to just talk to your device when you want the volume to be lowered or you want to skip a track than to fumble around with buttons. And while their voice recognition wasn't perfect, it was definitely usable, and the inclusion of the Siri and the Google Assistants is definitely a plus. I did have a point in time when it just wouldn't recognize my voice at all. Maybe it was upsetted me or something, but a quick restart fixed the problem. Sena's goodwill, if we can call it that, can further be seen by them offering the Mesh 2.0 software update to existing 30K users, basically upgrading them for free, decreasing the price for the new units, and offering a trade-in program if you want to upgrade your 30K device. Apart from their obsession with creating an app for every single one of their products, I mean, the Wi-Fi charger has its own app instead of being included in the 50 series' app. The new one is very well laid out, lots of useful features like an equalizer for your speakers and full intercom control. If you learn the voice commands, you basically have no reason to touch the unit ever. And that to me is a good user experience. There is also a feature where it will answer your calls if you say answer when somebody is calling, but circling back to the wind issues with open helmets, it answered all of my calls all of the time because apparently answer sounds a lot like the noise the wind makes. Waterproofing has also not made its way to the 50 series either. While Sena claims that their units are water resistant, this is not a cheap device, and personally I wouldn't risk riding with it in the rain. With the 50R the problem gets worse since you can't remove it from your helmet, so you would need to stop riding or make a little protective pouch for it. Comments time, my favorite part of the show. Let me know what you would like to see in the Sena 50 series versus the Pack Talk Bold video. I'm planning to finish that tomorrow, so let me know in the comments below. Well, that's the show for today, everyone. If you've enjoyed it, give it a big thumbs up, and if you think you've learned something new, consider subscribing or becoming a patron to help us make more of these shows. Cheers, and I'll see you on the next one.